sports fans, this is Robert with WTP Sports Dudes here live on this Sunday morning. Man, I am super geeked. I get an opportunity to answer some questions from some of our subscribers about my Texas Longhorns and how I feel like they're going to look going into this 2026 season. Thank you for joining the show. I truly appreciate you. But before I get into those questions, I got to say congratulations to my Philadelphia 76ers who won a Game 7 against a Jason Tatum-less Boston Celtics. Either way, I got to be happy about my Philadelphia 76ers advancing to the next round to play the New York Knicks. I'm excited for them. They played some really, really good basketball last night, and we got to see Joel Embiid, who was falling all over the place last night, but he made some key shots. And I'm telling you right now, that young man that they have in Tyrese Maxey, that guy can go. I think he scored their final 8 to 10 points to seal that victory last night. But that's enough for my Philadelphia 76ers. Congratulations again. Let's get into some of these questions that we have from our subscribers about the Texas Longhorns in this 2026 season coming up. If you're out there in the chat and you have some questions that you want me to answer, please go ahead and put them in there as it relates to the Texas Longhorns. Our first question that we got it from our man Parlay Poe of the Blitzburg podcast. Texas O-line woes last year. How confident are you that Cal Flood can produce a better O-line this season? Yeah, the O-line last year was a big issue for the Texas Longhorns. They weren't able to run inside zone the way they wanted to be able to do last year. This year, I think when you look at their lineup or projected lineup of Trevor Gooseby at left tackle, who could possibly be a top 15 pick in next year's NFL draft, coupled by a transfer portal addition in Lawrence Seymour at left guard, with a returning center who played the last maybe 6 or 7 games starting at center in Connor Robertson. And then you move Brandon Baker, who was the right tackle, into right guard. And then you bring in the transfer Melvin Siani from Wake Forest. I think this offensive line is going to be really, really good. The thing that concerns me is that a lot of these players did not get a chance to participate during spring ball because they were nursing some injuries, and some of them weren't quite on campus yet. But I think this is going to be a really good unit. Cal Flood has a lot to prove because a lot of people out there, especially Texas fans, were talking about how Cal Flood did not have that offensive line together. And he could have went into the portal and maybe got some guys because the guys last year weren't quite ready to do what they needed to do, and that offensive line had a lot of issues. But I think he understood the assignment. He went in the portal, got 2 really good pieces, and we got another piece that's going to be coming in who is graduating here in the next couple of days, who is also going to be an addition from Western Michigan. But we got Andre Kojo, who is going to be returning from an ACL injury, who's been in the program for 5 years. So he should be ready to take the next step. We also got Jaden Chapman, who also should be ready to take his next step, and also Jordan Coleman. So we got some depth there at the offensive line, and I think they're going to be much improved this year. And I'll talk a little bit more about that once I get to the running back question that I think we have in the chat as well. But I think the offensive line is going to be much more improved than it was last year going into the beginning of the season. And hopefully those guys can stay healthy during fall ball and into the season. Because we all know it's going to be a long, grueling season for any team that has aspirations and hopes of making it to the college football playoffs. The next question we have is from post-game sports podcast. What are your statistical expectations from Arch Manning this season? Wow, that's a really, really good question post game. And when you look at the way Arch Manning played the last 5 or 6 games of the season last year, and the way they were able to go 7-1 down the stretch in the last 8 games after losing to Florida, he played really, really good football, and the expectation is that he's going to be able to continue with that going into this year's season, his second year of starting at that quarterback position. But statistically, I feel like Arch Manning should be a 3K plus passer, at least 300 yards rushing, with at least 30 passing touchdowns, anywhere between 27 and 30 touchdown passes, maybe another 4 or 5 rushing touchdowns, giving him anywhere from 33 to 35 touchdowns accounted for in this Texas offense. The thing that I really want to see him improve on is his completion percentage. Last year, it was in the low 60s. But if you look at the drop rate that the Texas wide receivers and running backs had last year, he was at 8.1% of his passes were dropped. So let's just say he gets 5% of those back and he's down to 3.1%. He's up in the upper 60s, where I expect him to be this year, somewhere around 67, 68%. That would be really, really good if he's at that rate for Texas this year with the weapons that they have out there. He can make it to 70, though. If he makes it to 70, then you're looking at a phenomenal season from Arch Manning, and definitely a top 5 pick in the NFL draft if he decides to come out. But statistically, that's what I'm thinking. Over 3,000 yards passing, between 33 to 35 touchdowns accounted for, 27 to 30 of them passing, another 4 or 5 rushing, and then with a completion percentage of around 67, 68%. That's what I'm expecting from him statistically post-game. Thank you for your question. Let me go scroll through here because I see there's some other questions that were statements probably in the chat. I'm going to get to those pretty soon. My man SEC Sean is in the chat, and I got a question coming up from him next. And he's got another question there. How big a concern are you going to have Texas get it by? Oh, yeah. I'm definitely going to address that at the end, SEC Sean. I like that question. I'm glad you put that in there. But I'm going to go to another question that you had in terms of I might be able to couple both of these. Texas has a very tough schedule. What's your ceiling and floor on their record this season? That's a really good question, too. Texas' schedule is really, really difficult, in my opinion. They only have 4 road games, and then they got 7 home games, and they got 1 neutral site game. And you might think, oh man, they only got 4 road games. But when you think about those 4 road games, they got to go play at Tennessee, at LSU. I think they might have to go to Missouri or Arkansas, and then they end the season at Texas A&M. That is 4 really, really tough games. And like he said in his question, I'm going to put that up here too and address that one as well. He talks about the fact that they're only going to have 1 bye, and that bye comes early in the season. Then they play, I think, 8 or 9 straight games. In that gauntlet of a schedule, man, it's going to be very, very tough. So I think for them, the ceiling, I think, for Texas is 11-1. I don't see them going 12-0 with that schedule. I really don't see them going 12-0 with that schedule. They still have an Ohio State team who's going to be ranked 1, 2, or 3 in the country. They got to go to Texas A&M, which we know that's going to be tough. The last 2 games they played have been decided by, I think, 10 points. So you already know that Texas A&M with Marcel Reed is going to be a much more difficult game. He's at home, and he's 3 years in a system. And they have one of the better wide receiver groups in the country as well. So that's going to be a really tough challenge. They got to go to Tennessee, a place that they've never been, and have to play there in Tennessee. That's going to be a tough matchup for them. They also got Ole Miss. They also got to go to LSU. They got a really tough schedule. And I really do believe going 8 straight SEC games, as this question states, after the bye, is going to be so difficult. So I'm saying their ceiling is 11-1, but I really do believe their floor is 9-3. I think they could go through this schedule and at worst be 9-3. And I think the committee, if they see a Texas team with this schedule at 9-3 at the end of the season, they will get them in the college football playoffs. In my opinion, I believe they will. This year they had 9-3 last year and was they're knocking on the door. I think they'll get in. But it's going to be a really tough, grueling schedule, SEC, Sean. It's going to be tough. It's going to be tough. And I kind of wish that there was a way that they could have got that thing maybe in the middle or on the back end of their schedule to get that break. But to have it early in the season is going to be really tough. And I think that gauntlet of 8 games is going to be brutal. And hopefully they can come out at worst 10-2, which is what I project their record to be at the end of the regular season of those 12 games. I'm predicting them to be 10-2. Even though I'm a homer, I don't see 12-0. That's for sure. That's for sure. The next question we got is from One Take Zaya, and he wants to know, Texas added Raleek Brown and Hollywood Smothers to the running back room. Can you see them being like Wisner and Blue from 2 years ago? When you look at Raleek Brown and Hollywood Smothers, these two guys at the running back position, you're talking about two guys who can take it the distance. Now, we knew that Jaden Blue could go the distance, but Wisner didn't quite have that kind of speed. And the thing I like about both of these two running backs is even though they're smaller built, they can both run inside zone. But the great thing about them, in a Steve Sarkisian offense in the pass game, these guys are going to be really tough. I think they're going to be even tougher than what Wisner and Blue were, even though Blue was a really good in the offense when it came to pass catching out the backfield, more so than Wisner was. But both of these guys are really good out of the backfield, catching balls. As long as they pick up pass pro on those downs that they might need to stay in as a decoy, they'll be all right. And I really like these two running backs. And I think that this running back room is going to be really nice because you still got James Simon, who played last year, and you got a true freshman coming in Derek Coleman, who I think is really going to allow them to be really good on inside zone. And I can't forget about Michael Terry as well. He's a really big player for Texas. I think he's going to be the guy who, if they do decide to introduce the Wildcat back into their system, offensive system like they did with Roschon Johnson, he will probably be the guy to get the nod to do that. Hopefully they'll find a way to use Michael Terry a little bit more than what they have in the past, because he's a really talented player. Just a lot of times when you come in and you don't necessarily have a position of choice, like he came in as a wide receiver, running back, a do-it-all kind of guy, even played some quarterback in high school. You just got to find a niche for that guy because he can be a weapon for you. And I think Texas is trying to find a way to do that with him. So I think that this running back room is going to be really nice. I really like Raleek Brown and Hollywood Smothers, two home run hitting running backs. And with them coming in, we had about 4 or 5 running backs that went out. So we're going to really need to lean on these guys this year, and hopefully they can get the job done behind that offensive line that we expect to be much improved. The next question I got is from Mossberg of Level Up Sports 10. Where would you rank this wide receiver room with the tight end with the rest of teams in college football? Man, that's a really good question. I think this wide receiver room is going to be really, really good. If you looked at them last year and the wide receivers that they had a lot of injuries that what they suffered, and a lot of guys missed a lot of time in the spring, and they weren't able to get up to speed with Arch Manning because they was missing so much time in spring and some in the fall. So it took them a while to gel and get acclimated. This year, I think with the addition of Cam Coleman, with Emmett Mosley, and with Ryan Wingo, guys who can take the top off the ball, good possession receivers, big body guys, I think they're going to be really, really good. And I think if you look across the college football landscape, they are definitely in the top five in terms of wide receiver groups and wide receiver rooms. I think that Ohio State, whenever you got a Jeremiah Smith, I mean, you got that guy, you got to say that they're probably the number one wide receiver room in the country. But I think when you look at Texas, Texas A&M, you look at Ohio State, I think LSU is going to have a really good wide receiver room. You're going to have some teams out there that have some really, really nice Miami, really, really nice wide receiver rooms. But I definitely believe Texas is in the top five in terms of wide receiver rooms in the country. And my man SEC Sean also wanted me to touch on Cam Coleman, and do I think let me see if I can find that right there. There it go right there. Oh, there it is right there. Do you think Cam Coleman will live up to his potential this season? I really do think that he has an opportunity to really live up to his potential this season. He has been playing really, really good in the spring. He was able to be one of those receivers who can high point the ball. He's a 50-50 guy, but when you talk in terms of 50-50, he's more of a 70-30, 80-20 guy, because 80% of the time he's going to come down with it. 70% of the time he's going to come down with it. He's much more than a 50-50 guy. And I think the back shoulder throw will really come into play this year with this wide receiver group and Cam Coleman. I think he's going to live up to the potential this season, but we know that all depends on health. As long as he stays healthy, he's definitely going to be a great addition to this Texas offense, which was much needed. And when you think about the stat I said earlier, with Arch Manning had 8.1% of his passes were dropped by either running backs, wide receivers, or tight ends. If they can get that thing down to, I think Julian Sains was 2.1. Man, it would be fantastic if they could get that thing down to 2.1. But we don't have a Jeremiah Smith on our team, even though we have some really good wide receivers. But if we can get those drops down, I think that this offense can really, really go. And I think Cam Coleman will definitely live up to his potential. And I'll get to your question about their offensive side of the ball here in a short while, SEC Sean. Let me look at the other questions I have related to the offense. Oh, that was the last one. Let me go ahead and tackle that right now. What are your biggest concerns on the offensive side of the ball? Well, I mean, of course, it always has to start with that offensive line. Will the offensive line live up to what we expect them to? Will they be able to take that next step and be better, much better than what they were last year? I think they have three really, really good pieces that we already know on that Texas offensive line. Brandon Baker played really, really well last year. After he got his feet up under him, he started off a little bit shaky. But the last 8 games or so, he really played pretty good at that right tackle position. We know Trevor Goolsby is projected to be a top 15 pick in next year's draft at left tackle. I think we're in good shape there. And then Connor Robertson taking over at the center position. He played really well those last 5 or 6 games, and we end up moving Cole Hudson to left guard. So I think those three will really be a really good in their positions that they are, as long as these two transfers, Lawrence Seymour and Melvin Siani, who I think are going to be really good because they played a lot of football. I think this offensive line has a chance to be really good, and they got some backups that are ready to fill in for them when needed. So my biggest concern is definitely the offensive line. I'm not worried about the wide receivers outside of that. We got to cut out those drops, and then I think the running backs are going to be fine. I think Arch Manning is going to be fine. We've seen how well he played at the end of the season. So yeah, definitely the offensive line is my biggest concern, and hopefully they can be much better than what they were last year. Let me see if I got any more questions related to the offense before I go over to the defense. Yep, I'll get that question from you, SEC Sean, here in a second when it relates to the defense, because that's a really good question. So I'll get to that one here in a minute. Yeah, I'll get to that in a minute here, post game about them stopping the run. So let me go over to this defensive side of the ball and answer some of the questions that we have in the chat. The first one I have is from Parlay Poe of the Blitzburg podcast. Colin Simmons started off slow in the sack category last year, but finished with 12 sacks. What's your sack total prediction for him this year? With Will Muschamp and the way he wants to play defense, I don't think you're going to see a whole lot of Colin Simmons dropping into coverage like you seen last year. Will he do it some? Of course, because Will Muschamp is one of those coordinators who is going to always try to disguise some things. So he's going to make it look like Colin is coming, but he may drop back from time to time, but not as often as you seen him do again that PK offense. And I think he's going to have designs to where Colin Simmons can really get after the quarterback and use his athletic talent and speed and his BGO, his ball get off, to get to the quarterback. And I think this is going to be an ideal system for Colin Simmons because it's going to be similar to a system he's going to run in the NFL because he's a smaller guy. So he's going to probably more so go to a team that runs a 3-4 style of a defense. But if I had to predict right now, and I'm going to give you my prediction on it, how many sacks Colin Simmons will have, I think he will definitely get to 12, but I can see his ceiling being closer to 15. I know teams are going to find a way to try to scheme to get him out of those pass rushing lanes. Much like you've seen people add tight ends in last year's defensive scheme, they would add a tight end to his side to make it harder for him to go around. They double teamed him a lot. But when teams weren't able to do that and they had to go one-on-one with Colin Simmons, it was a nightmare for teams offensively. So I think Will Muschamp is going to do everything he can to make sure Colin Simmons gets as many one-on-ones as possible. So I can see his ceiling being 15 sacks, but I definitely believe he'll get to 12 sacks again. And that's an average of 1 sack a game, which is really, really good. And then when you couple that with how many pressures he's going to be able to get, he's going to have a really fantastic year as long as he stays healthy and he stays patient. He wasn't as patient during the beginning of the season. He was really pressing, and he weren't able to get those sacks early in the season. I think he understands that now, and he'll do a much better job this season. Our next question is from our man Post Game of the Post Game Sports Podcast. Out goes PK, in comes Muschamp. What differences will we see in the defense? I spoke a little bit about that in that last question. But in a Will Muschamp defense, you're going to see a lot of chaos. You're going to see players putting pressure on the quarterback. You're going to see a little bit more man to man. They're still going to play some zone, but it's going to be more man to man and more matchup kind of zone. When a guy gets to your area, then that's the guy you're going to cover. You're not going to allow guys to have a cushion. It's 3rd and 7, and you got a 9-yard cushion off of the guy, and you mess around and give up a first down. You won't see any of that with Will Muschamp. He's going to make sure that in down distances like that he's going to get pressure on the quarterback, and he's going to have his guys matched up on the outside. They're going to be covering their guy man to man. They're not going to be getting all that cushion. So we're definitely going to see that. And if you paid attention to the Texas Georgia game, the first one that they had in Austin, and you saw the way that they were coming after Quinn Ewers, you're going to see a much of that style of defense from Will Muschamp, because Will Muschamp was really the, I ain't gonna say he was the brains behind that, because we know that's Kirby Smart, but he designed a lot of that as the analyst for Georgia, because he saw some of the tendencies of Texas's guards to where they could exploit that stuff on defense. So he's going to do the same thing for Texas when they play their opponents. He's going to find those areas where they can take advantage and get pressure on the quarterback from seeing what the offensive line does for their by their opponent. Yeah, so I think they're going to be a really really good defense. PK has some really good defenses, and statistically they were good, but I think Will Muschamp is going to have some really really talented players on that team, and he's going to be able to do a lot of different things with that defensive unit. So I think they're going to be really 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 good. Let me scroll down and probably tackle your other question as well post game. No, I'll come back to that one. I'll come back to that one. I'll come back to that one. All right. SEC Sean wants to know Texas will face some very experienced quarterbacks. Will the back end of the defense be better than last year? Man, I sure hope so. I sure hope so. Because that backside, and I think a lot of it had to do with PK's style of play, and which is probably one of the reasons why Steve Sarkisian decided to go in another direction. He just, in those 3rd and longs, the year that we had uh, Jade Barron and we had a Makuba, he was a little bit more comfortable with those guys being able to press a little bit more than what he was with the guys last year. And I think this year, Will Muschamp understands that he has a much better unit than what we had last year. I think they're going to be really, really talented. I think when you look at the fact that Kobe Black might slide back to safety, which is probably going to be more of a natural position for him outside of it, playing corner, but he might be versatile like that. In some instances, he can play corner. But I think their defensive backfield group is going to be really good. Kay Phillips started the last 5 or 6 games last year. Grayson Littleton played the star position, which is on the slot receiver, all season last year. We got Wardell Mack back. We got Bo Masco out of the transfer portal from Rutgers, who's going to start at one of those corner positions. And we still got Warren Roberson. So I think Texas is going to be in really good shape in the defensive backfield for Texas. And I think they're going to be better than what they were last year. And I think they're going to be really, really good. I mean, you still got Jelani McDonald, who now you can move him around a lot more than what you could with Michael Tabb, because Michael Tabb was that guy that you got to move around. This year, a more athletic Jelani McDonald, a bigger Jelani McDonald is going to be able to fill that void. And then you got Derek Williams, you got Xavier Phil-Samid at that position. You also got Zealous Hicks, Jordan Johnson, Rebel. All of these guys have had some playing time. So Texas is going to be in really good shape in that defensive backfield. Now, are they as smart as Michael Tabb? Probably not. But they're more athletic. They got more of a skill set. than Michael Taft has. They just got to understand how to be a vocal like Michael Taft was. And I think that Jelani McDonald is coming to his own in that area. So I think this defensive backfield is going to be better than what it was last year. Close to being as good as, or maybe even better than what it was 2 years ago. That group that we had with Jade Barron and my man that went to the Philadelphia Eagles, his name just slipped, Makuba. I think they're going to be as good as them, maybe even better. Maybe even better. My next question is from my man One Take Zaya of the One Take Zaya podcast. How good do you think Texas will be against the run? And I believe we had that same question again from post game down there. He said, "Do you believe stopping the run will be Texas' biggest challenge this season?" I think that Texas run defense is not going to be their biggest challenge because they got some really talented defensive line guys. They brought in Ian Jafar from Arkansas, the big 370-pound guy who was just really a nose tackle. But in a Will Muschamp defense, he wants to have three big bodies up there and then have a guy like a Colin Simmons, a Zena. I don't want to mess up Zena's last name. Brad Spence. You got Lance Jackson. You got guys like that who are really going to make that defensive line really, really tough to run against. You also got Alex January, who may be able to come out after this year. He's going to be a true junior. He may be able to come out after this year because he has a high upside and he played really well last year. And then the transfer from Syracuse, I think he's going to be really, really good this year for them again, even though he had a lot of injuries last year. I think with him being healthy, Texas defensive line is going to be really good. And then you throw in Justice Terry, who is a freak. Now that he's gotten his weight up, he's around 280-ish. He's going to be tough with his athleticism. I think stopping the run is not going to be an issue for Texas whatsoever. They did that really, really well last year when their defensive linemen were healthy. They got into issues when they didn't have the depth that they needed because guys were injured. But I think this year they're going to have everything they need in order to be a really good run defense. And I think they're going to be really, really, really good. Really, really good against the run. So I don't think that's going to be the biggest concern. The biggest concern for me, if we're talking about the run game, is going to be those smaller linebackers. They're not big run stuffing thumpers like we had with Anthony Hill and some of the guys from the past. These guys are a little bit smaller. You're talking 6'1", 6 foot, 210, 220 pounds. So when it comes to run stuffing guys, they may not be as good, but they do got some big run stuffing linebackers on their roster, but they're probably not going to be the starters when you start talking about guys like Marcus Powell, I think that's his name, and then you got Juice Cryer, you got Kosi Opala, you got Rocky Cummings. Those young guys are going to be more the run stopping guys, and they're going to get some action this year because they're going to have times when they're going to play teams who are going to line up and run the football. So they're going to have to use some of those bigger linebackers, even though they're younger. But I think Cryer is going to be really good. He's going to get a lot of action, and he's more of a run-stuffing linebacker. So I think they're going to be okay when it comes to stopping the run, this Texas defense this year. I'll attack that question a little bit later on post-game. And let me go back up here and see what other questions we have defensively. Gets the run. Okay, here we go. Level Up Sports 10, my man Mossberg has a question. How many points will Texas need to hold opponents to go undefeated? Wow, undefeated. I don't see Texas going undefeated, but I do believe that Texas, they, like I said earlier, their schedule is loaded. I mean, they've been able to hold Texas A&M to 7, and I think it was 10 points last year. Do I expect them to hold them to that this season? No, I don't. I don't expect them to hold them to that. And they had opportunities to score more than that in the 2 previous years. So I think if they could keep it in the teens, they could be able to go undefeated. Because I think offensively, Texas will be able to outscore most of their opponents. Texas will be able to get in the 20s, but they're going to have to keep teams under 20, 17, 18 points while they score 21, 24 in most cases because they're going to be facing some really, really tough teams on their schedule. So, but I think if they could keep it in the teens, they could possibly go undefeated. I mean, if you think about it, if you can hold Ohio State in the teens, wow, that's one heck of a feat, right? They held them to 14 points last year, but then they gave up 20 something to Florida. If they could do that and keep teams in the teens, I think they can go undefeated. But that's going to be very, very difficult, especially when you start talking about what SEC Sean mentioned earlier about you got 8 straight SEC games, which half of them, I believe, are going to be on the road, or at least 3 of them is going to be on the road. And then you got the one neutral site game. That's going to be really, really tough to do. And so I think that Texas can go undefeated if they can keep teams in the teens, because I think they can score in the 20s on just about anybody with that offensive production that they have. But going undefeated, that's not in my vocabulary this year. I ain't going to be that much of a homer, even though I would love to see them go undefeated. But I think anytime a team loses a game or two, it better prepares them for the gauntlet that's going to happen if they make the college football playoffs. Now, we all said that we didn't expect anybody to ever go undefeated again and be a national champion. And in just 2 short seasons after saying that, we get Indiana who does it and goes 16-0. But we could probably say that again because it's going to be very, very, very tough to do, especially when you got to play at least one non-conference power forward team on your schedule. That's going to be really tough to do. Okay, I think that was my last question for the defense. Let me scroll down and see what other questions I have. My man SEC Sean said, will some of the wide receivers Texas will face, Muschamp likes man-to-man a lot. And do you have faith in your corners to cover those wide receivers? Man, SEC Sean, that is one heck of a question, and that is one heck of a nightmare that I have thinking about the fact that we're going to play more man-to-man. I think the players that we recruited are more man-to-man style corners, but we all know that wide receivers in college football, you really cannot afford to play man to man on them. You got to have a guy over the top. You face a Jeremiah Smith, you think you ain't got to have a man over the top of him? I mean, and if you think about Texas, they're gonna have Cam Coleman. You're gonna have to have a guy over top of him too. And I really feel like Texas scheme wise is going to have to understand that you got to stop the run if teams try to run on first and second down and put them in predictable pass rushing third downs where you can get after the quarterback. And then I think they'll be okay. But if there's a situation where it's 3rd and 2 and you got both options and you try to go man to man, it's going to be tough. And they probably wouldn't go man to man in those instances but they might because that's how Will Muschamp rolls. It's going to be tough. I think as long as Texas understands if we can get teams in 3rd and 7, 3rd and 8, 3rd and 6s, we could continue to play man to man and be aggressive. But if we allow teams to run the football and get us in 3rd and 3s, 3rd and 4s, where the whole playbook is open, it can spell for trouble. And I see your point, SEC Sean. It can be really, really tough for them. But I'm hoping Will Muschamp and those guys will be up for the task. I know they're going to lose some those battles when it comes to those 3rd and 3s and 3rd and 4s and 3rd and 6s and 3rd and 7s, but they got to win the majority of those things. My man, post game of the post game sports podcast. Is there a freshman that you think will come in and contribute right away? Freshmen come in and contribute right away. There's going to be some freshmen who are going to get some playing time, especially in those game 1 and 3. But in terms of really coming in there and making a serious impact, I don't I don't think so. I don't think so. Maybe Derek Cooper, the running back, he'll get an opportunity because I think he's going to probably be the guy on short yardage situations. Especially if he picks up things really, really well, he could be our goal line guy too because the biggest body we got in the running back room. So if I had to pick anybody, it would be him. And then there's a freshman defensive back. I can't remember his name right now. Smoke Matthews, that's his name. I think Smoke Matthews can come in and make some noise as well at that cornerback position. My man SEC Sean said, besides A&M, OU, and Ohio State, what is the biggest game in your mind? They got to travel to freaking Death Valley to play LSU, and you already know that's going to be a night game. You already know Lane Kiffin is going to be having so many things on the bulletin board to put up there to have his team ready for this Texas team. And they have a quarterback that gave Texas issues when they played in the college football playoffs. So with that, the quarterback that transferred in from Arizona State, I think that's going to be a really, really tough one for Texas. And then, like I said earlier, they got to travel to Knoxville to play Tennessee. And you already know what the hype is going to be about that. Arch Manning coming in to play in his uncle's backyard. You already know that media blitz is going to be crazy. And you hope that Arch Manning is going to be able to handle that media blitz that's going to take place, hyping up that game because his uncle went to Tennessee. And the fact that, the nephew is coming in there to play them for the first time ever in Knoxville. So that's going to be another one. And another game that I got penciled also SEC Sean is Ole Miss, because they're going to hype that one up too. His other uncle Eli went to Ole Miss. Ole Miss comes to Texas. So they're going to have that one hyped up as well. And they're going to have a really good team. They got Trinidad Chambers, who we already know can be all over the place in terms of using his legs, extending plays. That's going to be another tough matchup for them. Texas, and there's a lot of people out there. This ain't just coming from me. There's a lot of people out there who looked at these schedules and they say Texas has the toughest schedule next year in college football. I'm not making that up. You go do the research and you'll find that there's several people out there that feel like Texas' schedule is the toughest in college football next year. And, when you talk about the fact that SEC Sean said y'all got 8 straight SEC games with no bye, that's going to be really, really tough. And I think that those 3 games are also going to be tough ones for Texas. You got to go to Death Valley and play LSU probably at night. You got to go to Knoxville, which is a game I want to go to, but I'm not sure I want to travel to somebody else's territory and see that game. So I'll probably pick a game that's in Austin. And then you got Ole Miss coming to town. I think that's going to be tough. And you can't knock Missouri either. Missouri is going to be a really good team, especially if they're able to control the freaking clock and run the game with that dynamic running back they got. That could be a tough game as well. My man, post-game of the post-game sports podcast, would you have liked to see Georgia on the schedule? No, I do not. No, I would not have liked to see Georgia on the schedule. But you know what I do want? I do want to play Georgia in the SEC championship game. I think we gave away one in year one in the SEC. I think that was a game that Texas should have won. They missed 2 field goals that possibly could have helped them win that thing in regulation. You never know how things might go if they would have made 1 or 2 of those things. But I think it would have gave Texas a much better chance of winning that game had they made those 2 field goals. But I would not want Georgia. I don't want Georgia on a regular season schedule, but I do want to meet Georgia in the SEC championship because we already know Georgia is the king of the SEC right now. And if you want to take the crown, you got to beat Georgia, but you really got to beat them in the SEC championship game. Because remember, Alabama beat them last year in the regular season, and we saw what they did to Alabama in the SEC championship game. So if you want the title, I want Georgia in the SEC championship game. So hopefully my wish comes true and we can get them. Yeah, Tennessee is definitely going to call it the battle of the real UT, but we already know who the real UT is, and it resides in Austin, Texas. So I don't have any more questions out there. I appreciate everybody for tuning in. Make sure that you check out all of our channels that are scrolling across the bottom. Even though we come on and we say we're WTP Sports Dudes, we all have our own individual channel that we would love for you to subscribe to. So check us out. It's scrolling across the bottom. Make sure you hit the like button. Make sure you subscribe to all those channels. Make sure you hit that bell so that you can get notifications anytime we go live. You'll get that notification and you can tune in and watch us. We truly appreciate you giving us the support that you have been giving us. We've been doing this for almost 2 years and it is growing, and we're trying to stay consistent, and it's because of you that allows us to want to be consistent. So continue to support us. Also, I want to thank our sponsor of today's show, which is KT's Good Eats LLC. Go see their food truck today. They will be at Witten's Farm right there at 3341 Winchester Pike. You can get a 2 for $1. You can go get some really good lunch from them at the food truck, and then you can go into the Witten's Farm Market and also get you some baked goods. They got all kinds of stuff that you would like to have homemade from a farm, a functioning farm at that. So go check them out. You will not go wrong. I'm telling you, the food that my buddy Kevin and his wife make at KT's Goodies is phenomenal. And the products that you get from Witten's Farm is phenomenal as well. They got produce. They got everything that you could imagine that a farm will have, along with some delicious baked goods, homemade stuff. You will truly, truly love it. But I appreciate everybody for tuning in. Make sure you check us out on Spotify and Patreon at WTP Sports Dudes 2026. And also go to our website that we're going to be updating in the next few days at WTPSportsDudes.com. I appreciate everybody for tuning in. And we always end our show with peace to the people. All right. Peace.